Welcome to another Wednesday night with SONAR, the show that dives deep into the SONAR dashboard and the only show that gives you insight into the freight market faster so that you can know more and make more informed decisions about your day-to-day in the freight operations. With me tonight, as always, again with Luke Falaska, and joining us tonight, the master of SONAR himself, Reid Clements. How are you guys?
Good. Doing well. Happy to be here. Excited
Awesome.
for With SONAR.
Yeah, hey,
Right.
Brand new year, 2020.
I know it. We've taken a break off the last couple of weeks around the holidays, but it's going to be back.
Yeah, it is good to be back. And you know, lots have changed. There's been a lot of discussion around the freight markets, a lot of crazy things happening in the world right now. So we're going to dive a little bit into how we can track that in SONAR tonight. And then Craig, our CEO, wrote a fantastic article about the waterfall theory. And Reid, you're going to give us kind of your 2020 vision and talk about a little bit about the waterfall theory and how to utilize SONAR to get a better grasp on seeing some changes in tender rejections, right?
Right, absolutely. Just understanding what's really happening out there and how the workflow actually is for the freight industry, and then we can dive in and look at a couple markets and see how it impacts that market too.
Fantastic. I know we've got we're just going to dive into a particular market and see how things are going and flowing in that particular market and just kind of give some insight there.
Perfect.
Great. Well, we'll get to that later in the show, but first I kind of wanted to talk about something that kind of freaked me out a little bit today. So we've got conflict going in the Middle East. We've got IMO 2020 coming up, but I looked at, and we can show our screen here, looking at the diesel truck stop, like actual price per gallon that you see at truck stops, and even the ULSDR, the rack price of low sulfur diesel, haven't seen a huge spike, and I was really surprised by that. What is your kind of opinion on that, guys? Like, would you have expected with all the news? We've only seen a little bit of a fluctuation, 2 cents down, 2 cents up, but no real spike.
It's interesting too, because you've seen a lot of the oil prices, like in the markets this morning. Oil prices were skyrocketing; they were going up, and it was just kind of a knee-jerk reaction to whatever was happening today what happened in the Middle East. I guess last night there were some bombings, and it's happened a couple of times now this week and over the weekend. So it is a little surprising, and like you mentioned too, IMO 2020 is coming up. So I think there's just, it's sort of like this. We're in this limbo stage. Like, is it going to change soon? We don't really know. When is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? So, but it is surprising because oil is spiking, but diesel prices are not.
So what I was looking at today is just on the U.S. level, but you can actually break this down within SONAR on a market-to-market basis and really see how the fuel's being affected from things like news and IMO 2020 affecting those type of markets, but just on a day-to-day basis, knowing if you're going into a new market, what the fuel cost will look like for you, and just one of the many value adds of SONAR. So being able to break that down on a market-to-market level is pretty impactful as well. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And I'd have to agree with your earlier comments that it's kind of baffling. Most analysts were calling for an increase in diesel prices, be it rack price or retail price, which it's nice to see both in SONAR, but it's also not nice to see, well, I guess it depends on who you are. Diesel prices are staying pretty stagnant right now, which is kind of baffling most analysts and professional opinions from those with far superior minds than our own.
I mean, if I had to take a guess, already knowing what I knew about IMO 2020 coming up, and then the news of things going on in the Middle East, I would have bet the farm that the price would start to skyrocket, but we really haven't seen that. So I would say, at least for my current SONAR users, keep an eye on the diesel truck stop prices over the next few days, over the next week, and just keep a close eye on that. And
I would say take it a step further and keep an eye on the spread between rack versus retail price, and look at the different time deltas as they change as well to get a feel for when the spike in fuel surcharges could happen.
Okay.
And just for our viewers at a high level, what's the difference between rack and retail price?
Rack price is where the diesel is being stored literally at the rack. So if you hear people talking about they get their diesel at rack price, they're paying significantly less than the retail price. Retail being your Loves, your Pilots, the mom and pop stop there, right? And so you have your rack versus retail spread.
Okay. So, and there's some spots in between. People negotiate kind of a rack plus, where it's still a kind of a discounted deal, but well under the normal retail value.
Right.
So important to keep an eye on.
Fuel surcharges, of course, if we want to relate it back to our users, are going to be calculated off the DTS, which is more highly correlated to retail price,
Right.
which is when you see retail prices staying stagnant, but rack prices really dropping. That spread between gets pretty significant, and the guys paying rack price but charging retail price and their fuel surcharge can make a lot of money from that.
Awesome.
So it's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I love to hear about how to make more money, obviously. So, so let's dive a little bit into, and really why I wanted you to come on the show tonight, Reid. I had a great article a few weeks ago about the waterfall theory, and really, diving into why it is that we track tenders and tender rejections. So you want to start with maybe giving us a little bit of background. I know a lot of our consistent viewers have heard us talk about tender rejections, but for some of the new people tuning in tonight, love to give you some insight on why we're tracking that. And if you want to talk a little bit about the waterfall theory for me there, Reid.
Yeah, the waterfall theory is essentially the routing guide compliance theory of what's affecting pricing and what's happening anywhere. So, and we're not just making this up, this is a thing. Craig wrote an article shining a bright light on it to help everyone understand what's actually happening in the market today. To do a quick summary, essentially, shippers have their routing guides, their lists of their most favorable carriers that they want to give their loads to. Typically in the past, service is the #1 priority, because if you can't service the load, it doesn't make it there, then what are you paying money for at the end? So service is top priority, and then price comes in after that. Obviously rates are a huge deal. Everyone wants to know rates these days, and forecast rates, so really good. We got a really good product for that, actually. But for the waterfall theory, you have service and then rates, and you have your guide. Each shipper, call it Luke Flaska Shipping, who does really good quality products of all sorts. He's got his best carriers. He's got Luke, he's got Tommy, who comes in and always services his loads perfectly, charges $3 a mile. And then he's got Reid Clements Trucking, and I service the loads really, really great. Maybe even better than you, maybe not, about equal, but I charge $3.15 a mile. Okay. So out of the two of us, obviously you would be priority #1, right? And then I would be priority #2, and then there'd be a list of others along with that.
If I know I'm going to get good service either way, I'm going to choose the cheaper carrier.
Absolutely, absolutely. So service is priority, and then price comes after that. So that's the idea between the waterfall. That's routing guides, right? Okay. That's compliance guides. So the waterfall theory comes into play when you look at rejections of loads. So Luke's got this incredible product that's shipping everywhere, but Jimmy's produce, he's shipping out something better that could be higher paying at the time. So Luke's got his goods that you always ship, or that you always carry for him, but now Jimmy's got this better good that you want to ship, because you can charge Jimmy $3.30, right? $3.30 per mile, which is you're going to make more money off of that. No one's going to blame you for that. So you're going to reject Luke's load, and it's going to go to me, and I may accept it because I'm the next on the routing guide. Or I may be like, well, Jimmy really needs help. I was charging Luke $3.15 earlier. I'll do $3.50 for Jimmy, and I can move that goods for him. So I'll reject that load as well. It would fall through that routing guide to other carriers in the guide, and as that load is rejected more and more, it then gets turned to the spot market to be picked up and moved. So your contracted freight going from contract to contract to contract in the routing guide, in the compliance guide, and then it ends up getting kicked out and moved to the spot market, and that's going to then, as that happens more and more often, there's spot supply demand going to be flipped up and down, and rates are going to be going up and down, which we'll get into that in a minute as well. Yeah. But essentially, that's the waterfall theory in the compliance routing guide.
So, and these tenders can be rejected for various reasons, but primarily it's going to be price.
Price would be one. More favorable loads would be another. Maybe I actually don't have a truck in that area right now. I actually went and did that load for Jimmy, so I can't service Luke's next load. So I actually don't have available equipment, so I have to reject a load. There's a plethora of options or reasons why a load could be rejected. Right. And Craig does touch on those options in the article as well.
So we talk about just how much data that we're tracking within SONAR. So why is it important to see kind of the entire market's tender rejections based other than just like mine, like at my own companies? Like I know, you always get I know all about this market. I run this market all the time. Why is it important to be able to see just the full, robust data that we have just around tender rejections alone.
Well, it's because Reid's truck is an incredible company.
Yeah.
So is Tommy's trucking, but I'm not trying to do everything you do.
Right.
I am my own entity. You're your own entity. So we don't need to copy each other. Just because you reject everything Luke does, doesn't mean that I should. So if we only were to look at your own data and see that just you're rejecting this lane, it doesn't mean that rates are going to be going up because all these loads are going to the spot market, so the spot rates are spiking. It's not exactly what that means. But when you look at the majority of a market and get a feeling that, well, Reid and Tommy's trucks and Laura's trucks and Jimmy's trucks and Mike's trucks. And
You're just pointing at people around the room.
I'm pointing at everyone around the room right now.
Everybody's got a trucking company.
Everyone's trucking company. If everyone's starting to reject Luke's freight, then Luke's in a bind.
Right.
Luke's going to be paying prime dollar bills to get that freight moved. So if you see the majority of the market doing something, then that's a reason to look at that market closer and react to it. Or in a perfect world, be more proactive to as that's happening and take advantage of that as it's happening instead of react to it after it happened.
So that's kind of a focus around, what I'm thinking as far as a carrier goes. Like, is this market favorable? I'm seeing a big rejection. Maybe I should look at the spot market for better paying freight rather than what I've got currently with my contracted rates. But, and Luke, I'll go to you as a former broker. What kind of eyes would you want to have on these rejections from not only a broker standpoint, but also maybe a shipper standpoint? Why is it important for them to see this data as well?
Well, if it all kind of goes back to what Reid was saying, right? I mean, you want to understand what the market is saying and see how you're exposed to it. Just like Reid was saying, right? If I have, if carrier A is rejecting loads, that doesn't mean carrier B has to as well. But it's good for them to know because they have the ability to understand, okay, this is what the market's doing. Is it beneficial for my business? Maybe it's an opportunity for them to come and gain market share from that shipper, right? So they don't reject it. So there's different strategies, but it lets you know what the market's doing and gives you the ability to react and make those more informed decisions. From the broker and shipper's perspective, as Reid was saying, as tender rejections go up, more and more carriers are rejecting that freight for whatever reason. They don't have a truck available. They're getting a better rate from Jimmy. I'm trying to move Jimmy's freight because apparently he's paying a lot. But anyway,
the best freight.
You got the best freight, yeah. So if that's happening, then that shipper is going to end up being paying either A, going to get really bad service from finally diving deeper into the rowdy guys. They're going to be paying more, right? Or it's going to go to the spot market and who knows what they're going to be paying. So because of that, this lets them know when that's happening and they can make decisions around that, whether that's extend lead time on lows to potentially lower. If I'm a broker, that lets me know, oh, okay, great, I'm moving spot freight for the shipper. I should then increase my bid on that load, right? And that way it lets me know to cover myself on the way up. Because there's a lot of rating assessment tools that are out there today that typically use averages, like the last 7-day average, the last 15 days, last 30 days, depending on which one you're looking at, right? Which is great and all, but if a market can change in one day, and if it doesn't capture that, right, and you try to quote based off of what you moved the load yesterday, the day before, you could easily lose a lot of your margin, or if you're a shipper, really potentially, put yourself in a bind.
Okay.
So, understanding which direction these tender rejections are moving based on how the routing guides are performing tells you how you should adjust your pricing, either up or down.
So you can price yourself accordingly by utilizing the tender rejections, whether you're a shipper or you're trying to get the money to the truck, or you're just trying to capitalize on your margins as a broker, utilizing this information to make a more informed decision around your pricing.
100%. And something I'll say too is everybody, I feel like there's such a conversation today, like rates are so important. It's like, what's the perfect rate? Newsflash, there isn't one.
Absolutely.
Right? There's not a perfect rate.
I used to get $2.50 a mile every day on this lane, but the market's different now, right?
I mean, I used to move freight for shippers, the exact same lane, the same product, same equipment. I had 2 different rates from them, and I paid 2 different rates to carriers. It just works out that way. But what was true is the rates tended to move in the same direction. If the market was going up, both of my rates went up. If the market was going down, my rates would go down on both ones. So it might be a different dollar amount, but it was always moving in the same direction. And that's what's most important here. This is telling you which direction the market is moving.
That's a great point, which it takes you to the next step, which is where's the floor, right? So as tender rejections start to decrease, more and more carriers are accepting that shipper's freight. They're accepting all your freight, and they're accepting all of Jimmy's freight because there's an overabundance of capacity in the market.
That's a great point.
Literally right now.
I'd love to dive into a particular market and get a better understanding of that. But before we do, something brand new that we have on with Sonar is you can actually, if you're watching from a PC or an iPad today and have access to your phone on standby, you can actually scan a QR code in your bottom right-hand corner to book a live demo with one of our Sonar experts like Reid or like Luke to learn more about this amazing platform. So if you see anything that gets you excited about your day-to-day operations tonight, go ahead and click on that, and we'd be happy to show you a demo of Sonar in action.
And by something exciting, you mean make more money, right?
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. I would think, yeah.
It's 2020. It's New Year's resolution time.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my New Year's resolution, to make every existing Sonar user just a rock star at the platform and making more consistent money, but also getting more and more people on this platform because it's a game changer. It really is.
Absolutely.
So let's dive into, I looked at Louisville, not always a strong market, but I looked at Louisville, Kentucky today because their tender market share is still right under 1%, so it's not the weakest, but it's not the strongest either. You're not looking at your Atlantas or your LAs or your Ontario, Californias that are really being affected from this post-holiday mess, but a fairly consistent market, but has seen some real growth as far as tender rejections over the last few days. And we're at just under 10% today in Louisville, Kentucky, at 9.83%. Back to your point, what's the floor, what's the ceiling? At what percentage, in your guys' opinion, being in this platform every single day, where can you start saying, okay, I need to make a move based off of the percentage of tender rejections in a particular market?
I think, if I may, that's a super relative question. It's relative to each specific market. Each market's different.
Sure.
That's why I think, and we may or may not talk about it if we have time today. If not, definitely next time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm on our next episode. But the weighted rejection index is very powerful because it shows the value of tender rejections on a per market level, and it's all different on every single market.
Right.
But for a market like Louisville, it's a sub 1% market share market, but it's not Fargo. It's still a market. It's still a usable market.
People at least go through Louisville.
Right, exactly.
My sister used to live there.
Exactly. It's important. Good bats and stuff. They're good bats.
Yeah.
But back to what we're saying, it's all relative. I tend to think a very safe bet is between 8 to 10%. Tender rejections is a shift point. Anything below 8 would be more shipper-centric as far as pricing power goes. If 92% and above of your freight is accepted all the time, your routing guide compliance is pretty good. And according to the waterfall theory, then the rates are going to continue to fall until they hit that floor.
So the flip side of that, you're talking about a small market like Louisville here. If you're in a major market where 8% could really be a lot of freight.
Right. So that tender rejection would be down, instead of 8 to 10 to be like 6 to 8% is a major number to take a look at and take advantage of at that point.
Okay.
So it's relative to that specific market. So a market like
share,
like Bismarck, North Dakota, or something, like 10 loads get rejected, and all of a sudden rejections go through the roof. 10 loads get rejected.
All 10 loads coming out of Bismarck get rejected, and it'd be impactful.
And Luke, we have a brand new index, but mainly used on a map, the weighted tender rejection index. What do you call it?
That's your money map.
You talk about it all the time during the week on the.
That's it.
Yeah, so that's great.
No, it's just like Reid was saying. It gives rejections away, right? If tender rejections, meaning like these routing guides, right? As more and more freight gets rejected by carriers in a market like Atlanta or LA, right? If that goes up 1%, you're going to feel that a lot more than if like Fargo, North Dakota goes up 1%.
15%.
Yeah, it goes up 15%, and who cares?
Yeah.
Right. But in
no
like
offense,
a market,
Fargo. We love you.
Love you guys.
Speak
great movie.
It was a good movie.
It was great.
Great. I'm kidding. It was a great movie.
Yeah. You're not invited back to the show. But yeah, I mean, like that happens, right? So in those major markets, so the weighted rejection rate basically tells you that with a quick glance. So I can, like, let's say we're a brokerage floor, right?
Yeah.
And we need to figure out who to call today. Right, absolutely. Like I was talking to a company today and they have about 44 brokers, and he said they're making almost 2,000 sales calls a day in addition to all their other activities.
Yikes.
Right? So that's a lot of sales calls that they make.
Yeah.
And if you can figure out a way to just, well, where do shippers have the most need today? Where are the most pain points? Great, I click on a map and I'm like, okay, today it's Houston, Harrisburg, and Memphis, Tennessee, like, right? Okay.
Always about being more strategic about your sales calls. I could easily open up the phone book and blindly pick a number.
Anybody can do that.
Yeah, anybody can do that. But utilizing this tool, and in just one map alone, the weighted tender rejection or the moneymaker map.
Come on, man, we're making money.
You can use that to be more strategic about your sales calls.
That's it.
That's awesome.
Imagine if you use that and you land one extra customer a month, even if it's not a huge customer, maybe just a small to mid-sized shipper. One extra customer, what does that do for your business?
Absolutely.
There's a lot.
And then if we go back to talking about pricing yourself accordingly, where you're making more margin on your existing freight.
Easy money.
Yeah, absolutely.
Imagine making an extra $2 a load on average. Or what's that? That's huge. Doesn't sound like a lot, like one load, but
if you're moving
1,000 loads a week, or even a month,
right?
That's a lot of money.
Absolutely.
Right? That's an extra vacation.
To bring it back to what we were talking about.
Yeah.
How does it correlate back to SONAR? The waterfall theory, how does it all come back? So, summary, waterfall theory is essentially taking the routing guide compliance and saying as tender rejections decrease, more and more people are accepting their freight, rates are going to continue to fall down. It will hit a market floor, the market floor being the operating cost of a truck. This is essentially what 2018 was. That's why we saw all these bankruptcies and different time, different place. The ceiling, however, as tender rejections go up, there is no ceiling, it's rates. Continue to hike them. Tender rejections will let you see where you can continue to hike and be a leading indicator for that. So what FreightWaves, what Craig, what the big brains and the data team did was create an algorithm that was starting to track tender rejections, and not just tender rejections, but also look at, is the market a head haul market, is it a back haul market, what's the pop density in that market, what are hours of service being utilized in that specific market, is the origin market good or is it bad, is the destination market good or is it bad, what's the base operating cost of a truck these days anyways, what's the tender lead time, what's the premium timeline on getting the good delivered, and put all this into this nice long algorithm that's dynamic and it's changing all the time, that's got machine learning and all these buzzwords that I'm not going to act like I know everything that happens in it, but I understand on a base level of how that works, and put it in an algorithm to spit out rates, not just rates for today, but rates for next week and for next month and for next quarter and for 6 months from now and for a full year out. And not just rates on that time delta for predictive analytics, but also on a bell curve, because we're not going to say the rate's $1.77 and this is the Bible. We're going to say the rates are between $1.60, $1.80 right now. And use your own sentiment towards that, because we're not saying these are our emotions towards it. Use your emotions towards it, and price accordingly, because there's always emotions in it. It's trucking, it's emotional.
Absolutely. It's an emotional business.
Absolutely.
So you have all that. Going back to a full year, you have your fuel surcharge calculator. It's in there as well. It's incredible because it's 780,000 origin destination pairs. So you can see, we're in Chattanooga. We got the Hunter Art Museum here. It's really, really cool. But if they need to get something moved from there all the way up to Jackson Hole, to one of the geysers. What's that geyser called? You know what I'm talking about? Old Faithful.
Old Faithful. God,
they gotta get this piece of art and they gotta wedge it into Old Faithful.
Right.
Then we can throw a price out there, because we have it based off market intelligence on these specific locations, not letting old rates determine new rates, but letting actual
market
intelligence and market volatility determine what should be paid out on that lane. Then sprinkle your own sentiment on top.
Well, great, guys. We're wrapping up here on time. How can our viewers learn more? The best way to do that is to schedule a quick demo with us, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. So just email.
They can email, or they got the little scan thing, right?
Email us or scan the QR code, book a demo, and
leave us a comment.
Leave us a comment, ask us questions here on air, and we'd love to get them answered for you. I want to say a special thanks to my friends at Avenger Logistics here in Chattanooga for my mug of the week. You can visit them at avengerlogistics.com, and I did hear that they are actually growing their brokerage operation, looking to hire close to 20 to 30 new brokers in 2020. So if you're looking for a career in logistics, hit up my guys at Avenger and they'll treat you right. So
also read the Waterfall Theory article. It's
Also,
incredible.
yeah,
It's super
yeah.
smart. Read why is Sonar so smart. They got some good stuff out
So
there.
just go to FreightWaves.com and search Waterfall Theory, and it should be, you know, the first thing that pops up.
Or email Luke or myself or Tommy
Yeah.
and say,
And we'll just forward it to you.
Yeah, we'll get it to you.
That's easy
We'll get
too.
it taken care of. Ask
Pro
for it in the
bono.
comments, anything. We'll get it taken we'll get it to you.
No charge for sending you a document.
The free article online, we'll give it to you.
First
for
one's
free.
free.
We'll give it
First
to you
one's
for free.
All right, guys. Well, for all of us here at FreightWaves, I'm Tommy Iago, Luke Velasca, Reid Clements. Thank you for tuning in to With Sonar. And again, scan the QR code down at the bottom. We'd love to give you a live update and live demo of what's going on in the freight markets with Sonar. Have a great evening.